So, as you remember, about a week ago, the tornado sirens went off, albeit briefly, but they still went off as a tornado was potentially approaching El Dorado from the southwest. Well, that can mean only one thing, and that's Severe Weather Awareness Week is here. So, next week, we are going to do a quick splurge of severe weather videos each day next week to kind of communicate some of the things that you need to be mindful of as we approach severe weather season. One thing that I would encourage everyone to look into getting is a weather radio. You can obtain one at a retail store that sells a wide variety of things, such as Walmart or Ace Hardware. And these weather radios are so important because while the sirens are there to help inform people of a tornado, an impending tornado, you may not hear them and they may not give you enough time. So weather radios are always a good thing to have around. So we'll have more tips and more information about severe weather next week, beginning on Monday. So make sure you stay tuned for that information. This week, the City Commission discussed a couple of things during its work session on Wednesday. The first of these matters was the signage regulations. The City Commission is asking the Planning Commission to look at temporary signage requirements and a couple of other provisions of the signage regulations to accommodate requests from the public and from businesses as well. So if you're interested in the signage regulations and any possible changes that may be coming as a result of this review, stay tuned. The Planning Commission will be having a discussion about these requirements as well as a public hearing to ascertain input from the public. Your input will be important to helping us determine how we should change the signage regulations, again, specifically the temporary signage regulations, to accommodate, more use of signage. So stay tuned for that as we get more information out about that. Another thing the City Commission discussed this week was a proposed downtown street plan, which will affect First and Main as well as Pine and Main. The first component of this plan is to convert some of the parallel parking spots to diagonal parking, and the second component is to install bump outs along the intersections of First and Main and Pine and Main. The bump outs will allow pedestrians to more safely cross the intersections by allowing them to get out into traffic a little bit more. It will also serve as a calming device, which will hopefully restrict traffic to slower speeds as they go through the downtown intersection. Another important piece of this plan is that the pedestrian signal at First and Main will be going away. This is actually one of the catalysts for some of these improvements because Evergy is planning to cut the electrical power to that signal, and the city, in lieu of replacing the signal, is going to remove it and install some of these calming measures, the bump outs specifically, to hopefully make it, to mitigate some of the concerns. Part of the reason that we are not putting the signal back is because staff is of the belief that it creates a false sense of security, as not all pedestrians use that signal, and those that do, drivers are not necessarily used to seeing that signal operate as needed, and so if you're not paying attention, it could actually create more of a dangerous situation than a safe situation. So we believe the bump outs and other improvements that we are talking about will mitigate some of those concerns and ultimately make downtown a safer place to travel if you're a pedestrian. So be looking out for those. Those will actually be coming kind of parallel to the Central Avenue improvements that we are anticipating with the base grant projects that we've discussed on the show before. Earlier this week, as you all know, there was an active shooter call to the El Dorado High School. And the first thing that I want to do is thank all of the first responders who responded to the El Dorado High School. It goes without saying that these individuals were extremely brave in their response and extremely dedicated to the community and trying to get that situation resolved as quickly as possible. There were first responders from the El Dorado Police Department, the Butler County Sheriff's Office, the Fire Department, the EMS office here in Butler County, as well as the Kansas Highway Patrol, and we also had other law enforcement agencies from other jurisdictions coming to assist as well. We also had folks from SBA and other community agencies go to the scene as well, because they know that their services would be needed in the event of a crisis of that magnitude. Luckily, nothing of that sort happened. It was a hoax, and hopefully law enforcement agencies can track down who the perpetrator was so that we can get some justice with respect to that. The second thing that I'd like to say on that is that the city, the county, and many other agencies practice regularly to respond to crisis situations within our community. In fact, as I reported several months ago, the police department, sheriff's department, and several other agencies practiced a tabletop exercise for an active shooter drill so that we had some at least background for how we would respond and communicate through that situation. Another thing that we do is we debrief situations so that we can learn from the response and figure out ways to improve in the event that there's a crisis that happens again. So the police department, as well as the sheriff's department and the public works department, conducted a debriefing session this week, and we are also going to be meeting with the USD 490 administrative staff as well to debrief the scenario as well. This is important for the public to know, I think, because we don't treat this as a one-off situation. We always look at the situation and the response, and we always think of ways that we can improve the response, whether that be from a timing standpoint, from a response standpoint, or from a communication standpoint, so that we can make sure that the community knows that we are doing the very best that we can to address the situation and provide timely communication outward. So hopefully we don't have to use those skills again, but we always prepare like we will have to. That's all I have on things to know this week. Everybody have a safe weekend, and don't forget, next week our severe weather awareness tips beginning on Monday.